This morning, we're going to talk about Shirish's new book, Startup to Exit. What made you to write a book?
One is that, as you know, 9 out of 10 startups fail, which is not unusual because it's really super hard to come up with a great idea that catches fire and captures customers' imaginations. But I feel that entrepreneurs can still be successful if they follow a disciplined approach. And so my goal in writing this book is to change that equation. If I can make it so that only 5 out of 10 startups fail, certainly there will be bad ideas and entrepreneurs who don't know what they're doing. But if I can change that equation, just imagine the impact that it could have on the overall economy. You have the 8 biggest companies or 8 or 9 biggest companies today in the world are all technology companies. And so I want in a small way to really impact the startup ecosystem and inspire and equip entrepreneurs to be successful.
What was the one thing you always focused on in each of these startups?
Yeah, so the main thing that I've been always highly focused on is developing a product or a solution or a service that really engages and excites consumers. One of the things I always talk about in terms of entrepreneurship, that a successful entrepreneur has to have a very strong product orientation and deep customer empathy. You don't have to be a technical person. I was fortunate in that I had a technical background, but I've seen a lot of other people who are non-technical who have very strong product. So my focus always has been, even if I had a product management team, is to really think through the product vision and then go execute against that and build something that is very easy to use, that's delightful, and that engages and retains customer.
You focus quite a bit on product market fit. Talk a little bit about why that's become a central theme of arguably even your book, I would say.
Yeah, without product market fit, you don't have a company. It's that plain and simple. And we see time and time again, and I made that mistake with my first company, where you think you have a great idea and you have this vision for how this idea is going to change the world. Oftentimes, you are your own customer, and so you kind of project onto the world your preferences as a customer, and so you think that everybody's going to be like you and is going to love your product, and then you launch it and you find out that it falls flat on its face because it didn't solve a critical customer need or a problem. So it's great to have a product vision and an idea of how you're going to change the world. But I would say it's very, very important to go talk to potential customers, and not even, you should start the conversation not even by telling them about a solution. Don't make that mistake. Ask them, what are the top 3 to 4 problems that you are encountering? And let them explain that to you. And if the problem you are addressing is not in the top 3 or 4 problems, then it doesn't matter if it's the number 5, number 6 problem. The customer will never buy your solution because it just doesn't make that priority list. So the first order of business is to really find out, is this a problem, a real pain point for the customer? And are they even hacking together a solution? That's a great sign that somehow they're cobbled together an internal solution to solve that problem. And when they find out that you have a problem, they're all over you and saying, hey, when can I try it out? That's that's the kind of product market fit that you want to kind of establish before you go out and build it and launch a company.
There's a question: what parameter would you use to measure product market for a B2B business to use?
Yeah. And ideally, maybe you can even get your customer to pay for building your solution. I mean, that's. I'll give you an example of a local company called iCertis. We all know Samir Bodas, who's on our board at TIE Seattle. The way he got started with his contract management solution was he actually happened to meet the legal counsel from Microsoft, and he described a problem that they were having in managing all the contracts. And that was the space that Samir was not even familiar with, and his perception was, you just sign a contract and you file it into a filing cabinet and you never see it again. But he was led to understand that a contract has enough, a lot of information in it that needs to be communicated to the rest of the organization. It's a living document, and so. Microsoft actually then paid Samir to go build the first version of iCertis, and then the rest is history. So that's a perfect example of a story that talks about how you kind of achieve product market fit.
So now, let me dive into your first startup, Teamon, right? Mobile email was very nascent when you started. How did that leap happen? Is it your Hotmail acquisition that got you a view? Because I don't think anybody thought at that point people would be responding to emails on a device.
Right. Yeah, actually, there's a little bit of history even before that. So you're right. The germ of the idea came from Hotmail. Hotmail was, as we know, a very popular consumer email system. And so I thought at that time that, hey, if Hotmail was successful as a web-based email solution, then why not offer business email as a web-based email solution? So basically a cloud-based offering for a business email and calendaring service. Imagine this was 1999. It's almost 20 years ago, when cloud was not even a term that was utilized. And so we actually launched, I was convinced that this would change the world. I had the same arrogance that I talked about earlier. I didn't do any market research. I was just convinced that this was going to change the world. And so I launched Teamon. And sure enough, I found out that I was too early with my solution. Today, of course, Office 365 and Gmail Suite and all are very, successful cloud-based, solutions. But this was very, very early days of the internet, and the world was simply not ready for my solution. So we had to decide what to do. Fortunately, I'd raised over 15 million in funding in those crazy .com boom times. And so I had the time to actually pivot. And so we decided that we would pivot in the mobile direction. And the reason I was convinced about that, again, was because BlackBerry had made its appearance in the late 90s. And it was at that time, they had about 600,000 or so users. And all the VCs and investment bankers and the management consulting types were using this pager device attached to their belt. And so that to me was a significant proof point that email is so ubiquitous and it's so timely that the ability to view your email and respond to it while you're on the road, I thought would be a really critical killer application. So that was kind of the belief that led me to then pivot to providing a mobile email service on commodity phones. So you don't have to have a specialized device called BlackBerry. You could just use it on your phone, which at that time was, for the first time was able to access the internet.
So you've been at this for 20 years. Is there and you've talked to many startups and entrepreneurs. Is there a typical entrepreneur
Yeah, you're right. Having heard the stories of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, you think that either you have had to have started a lemonade stand, when you were a teenager, or started a business, like Michael Dell when you were in college, or you have to be this phenomenal, leader, to build something great. I mean, that certainly helps a lot, and clearly, the successes of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and others have shown that you can, people who are extraordinary leaders, visionaries, can become successful entrepreneurs. But my belief is that you don't necessarily have to have all those qualities. The key qualities that you need to have, as I mentioned earlier, is one is deep customer empathy and product orientation. You need to really understand the customer problem really, really well. And you need to have this product orientation to say, okay, how do I build a solution that really solves the customer problem? So that's, a key attribute. Another key attribute is, perseverance and mental fortitude. So you have to be, you have to have the toughness to really persevere and go at it, to bang on the wall, and continue to sell your vision to both customers and employees. And then finally, you need to be a great salesperson, not in the traditional salesperson sense, but somebody who can really communicate their vision and the story that you're trying to create about your company. You need to be constantly selling people. You need to sell your employees. You need to sell, customers. You need to sell VCs, and you need to be comfortable with that. You don't necessarily have to be a phenomenal speaker, but you have to have that conviction that needs to come across to really be successful in that role.
What would you say to them, a mistake that you made, and or the way you presented that you did get funded, that everybody should be cognizant of? Mm-hmm.
Certainly, in terms of mistakes I've made, as I mentioned before, I had the arrogance of thinking that I knew what customers wanted with my first company. And and the reality, I smacked right into the wall of reality. You have to be, it's interesting as an entrepreneur. You have to have great perseverance, but you also have to be smart, and you have to figure out at what point, you have to, change your vision, to adapt, evolve, and be smart about it. But going back to your question about fundraising, the key thing that I find more so in the Seattle area versus the Bay Area is telling a great story or vision. We tend to kind of be a little bit shy and circumspect. We hesitate to kind of create this wonderful picture of how you're going to change the world. But that's what you need to do. You need to seduce the investors and paint this vision for why you're going to change the world. I'll give an example. With Limoca, which is my second company, which was a language learning company, we painted this vision that at that time, this was 2007 timeframe, which was when globalization, was rampant around the world, and companies were setting up shop in other parts of the world, both for manufacturing workers, knowledge workers, etc. And it became very clear that if you wanted to get ahead in life, that you had to learn English, whether you're in India, China, or Brazil, Southeast Asia. And so I painted this vision of globalization, changing the world, and that the need for English language learning was going to be phenomenal, and you're going to have, 1 billion plus people around the world, in China and India and other countries, who'd want to learn English to get ahead, and that in many of these countries, even though they didn't have the GDP to pay for education, that parents were willing to spend a lot of money to educate their children to get them ahead in life.
So talk about how should entrepreneurs today think about go-to-market?
What's interesting is that I've found time and time again that many of these startups are started by technologists who all they think about is how to build a great product, which is obviously very, very important. But then they think that I will build it and they will come, right? And they don't have the business experience to really figure out how to acquire customers, how to engage them, how to retain them. All of these things require really a well thought through go-to-market strategy. And so what I recommend is for people to actually begin testing their go-to-market strategy even in advance of building the product, even test the value proposition. What I recommend to people is that they actually create a website and conduct an SEM campaign or a Facebook campaign. Test out different value propositions, different messages, different landing pages. Even take them to the point of actually quote unquote paying for the solution. At which point, of course, you would say, hey, we don't have the solution ready, but register your email address and it'll let you know when the product is released. You need to do all of that. One, to test out the right messaging, the right value proposition, but also to figure out how to go reach customers. What is your customer acquisition cost going to be like? Is your business model going to support that customer acquisition cost? And let's say it takes you $5 to get an email at registration, then traditionally you want at least a 5-to-1 ratio between customer acquisition cost and lifetime value. Does your business model support that? Those are questions that you have to figure out even in advance of actually launching a solution.
What would Shirish tell a younger Shirish today?
Yeah, I would tell two things mainly. One is get started earlier. Actually, if you look at the world today, there are phenomenal opportunities, and what's interesting is that VCs today have an age bias, and the age bias is they want younger entrepreneurs right out of engineering school or business school, and they're willing to put lots of money behind them. So my advice is to start sooner, when we don't have a family and you can live in your parents' basement and take the time and take the risk to pursue your dream. So that's one. And the second is as I mentioned earlier, is to really focus on ensuring that you have product market fit and fail fast. You might have a great idea, test it in the market. If it doesn't work, okay, hey, no big deal. You spend 3 months or 4 months on it, and you can go at it again. So be prepared to test your idea, but be prepared to fail fast and adapt. That's the story of Instacart. I heard one of the podcasts for the founder of Instacart, Apurva Mehta. He apparently tried 22 different ideas before hitting on the idea of Instacart. But he was a young, engineer, got some experience at Amazon, and he had nothing to lose. So I think that's really exciting that you can go out there and try different things and put something out there quickly and test it and see if it works.
What would you say to entrepreneurs who are flooded with capital today? How do they balance that with execution?
Right. And actually, I've experienced that because I raised $15 million with a beta product during the dot-com boom, and then experienced the dot-com bust after a year, after I raised funding. So certainly, you should take capital as it comes, because you don't know when the next bust is going to hit and how you're going to get to that bust if you don't have enough capital. But you also have to be careful to not, raise money at astronomical valuations, because what is going to happen, and this is something that happened to me, was that when the bust does come, the valuation is going to take a significant hit, and the revenue is going to take a significant hit because there's a recession going on, etc. And so at that time, raising money with a down round becomes very challenging. Investors don't like to invest in a down round, even though they're getting a lower valuation. They don't like to invest in a down round. The reason being that it pisses off the existing investors and employees and so forth. So it creates a complication that they would rather avoid. So my advice to entrepreneurs who are flooded with capital is be realistic, raise the money, but be realistic about the valuations at which you're raising the money.